folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio, where I'm about to get started on a new caboose building project. I've got a few caboose here on the Thunder Mesa layout, but I want to show you two of my favorites, and they are caboose number 92 and number 93. Number 92 here is scratch built, or was scratch built, atop an old Bachmann passenger car truck, and utilizes the technique of photorealistic CG textures for the sides. This is actually not painted wood, it's printed. So I cheated a little bit there, and that way I can get those nice graphics and things on the side, all in matte colors without having to use decals and stuff like that. I've done it before on some other rolling stock projects. And this is caboose number 93, which, as you can see, doesn't have any graphics on it yet. This one started out as a kit from Chris Bohn at Full Circle Models. He actually sent me a sample of this kit that was partially built, and I completed it, and that became caboose number 93 here. But I added these, I turned it into a four-wheel bobber caboose because I'm a big fan of four-wheel bobber cabooses. And I used these posts from Boulder Valley Models for the wheels, which are unfortunately no longer available. Maybe you can find some used somewhere, but anyway, I loved the size and look of this caboose so much that I ordered another one of the kits from Chris for a center cupola model, and that's what I'm going to be building this week. A center cupola caboose, bobber caboose, which combines elements of this model and this model together, and that will become Thunder Mesa Mining Company caboose number 94. Now here is the kit from Full Circle Models. Comes just like this. I haven't even opened it up yet. I'll do that in a minute. Chris also very kindly sent me another floor with a four-wheel, 3D printed four-wheel bogie. Chris tells me he's working on getting a website up. That's not up yet, but you can email him to find out what all the different products and configurations there are available, and I'll put a link to his email down below if you want to contact Chris for one of these. But in the meantime, let's open this kit up and see what's inside. Let's see what we've got. Got some nice thorough instructions, looks like. And the kit is made up of some nice laser cut wooden parts, some cast resin parts, some bent wire, it looks like. Wow, he even included, looks like KD number 5 couplers in here. I was not expecting that. I was expecting to have to provide my own couplers. You know, you get a lot of these kits from small manufacturers, and they do not include trucks and couplers. This one does, which is really, really cool. All the wire for the end rails is all pre-bent. It's got a smoke jack, some other hardware. It's got the screws and washers, nut bolt washer castings. Basically looks like some spacer blocks. Everything I'm going to need to put this kit together. Really nice and clean. Looks like it's basswood. Here's another floor. You can see that's cast resin. All the windows are all cast resin. The end beams are cast resin. And then more laser cut parts. And some, look at that, man after my own heart. He's got some illustration board cut for the interior parts. Awesome. If you do work with resin castings, this is something that's I found is really important to have on your workbench and very helpful. And it's a place to sand, a level spot to sand those castings down. And what I use is a piece of glass from a cheap picture frame. Just be careful with it, don't cut yourself. And this is some, what is this, 400 grit sandpaper. And I'm just going to tape this down on top of the glass. I'm using some white artist's tape, but you could use masking tape as well. Make sure it's as flat as you can get it. And just take it and holding it as flat as you can. These are the end beams. Just sand it down. Doesn't take much. And my plan is to paint all of this a dark, dirty brown, so I'm going to go ahead and glue the bogey on here. And it actually just keys in here quite nicely. All right. Easy peasy. Before I finish with the frame, I need to kind of backtrack a little bit and put the interior walls together. And these are the ones that are made out of some Crescent illustration board, which is a building material that I like to use quite often in my builds. Just like when building a structure, I like to do 3 of the walls first and then put that 4th wall in. Alright, now I can add the roof supports, which look like laser cut basswood. Now there's these little supports here that go right below the doors to add strength. Make sure that's square. That's pretty good, but I think I would like this to be even stronger. So I'm going to add a couple of 2x4s, one above the door on each side, just to reinforce this wall a little bit more. I'll let that dry, and then I can sand that little teeny bit off of there to match the arc perfectly. So I'm just going to clamp these in place temporarily so I can get the measurement I need. And one thing is, if you're working with resin kits, resin parts, really good idea to have a nice set of files because you're going to be doing a lot of filing and sanding to get a good fit. Once again, I'm going to use some medium CA, and I'm going to put some use some baking soda to fill in any gaps there might be, make a stronger joint. Now I can put the end platform on. How much overhang I want. So off camera, I went ahead and put in the end rails and the brake wheel assembly. The end rails are really nicely made from brass and soldered. But I wanted to mention that I had to drill out the holes a little bit because this fit was a little bit too tight. And that has nothing to do with the fit and finish of the kit, I want you to understand. But it has everything to do with, well, physics. no matter how carefully you measure when you're creating something like this for other people to put together, um, everything expands and contracts. Everything changes with the temperature. Some things, some materials, like resin, change a lot, expand and contract quite a bit with changes in humidity and heat. Wood, of course, we all know that expands and contracts. Brass expands and contracts with the temperature. So no matter how careful you are with trying to match up the diameter of this brass rod with those holes, there's going to be some fitting to do. So you got to have a set of micro drills, drill bits, and a twist drill handy for that kind of thing. And now I'm ready to get a coat of paint on all of this. All right, I want to show you my painting setup over here. Basically just have a little Dixie cup taped down to a piece of cardboard. Got another loop of tape on the bottom here, and this allows me to paint the bottom frame of this without too much difficulty. I'll paint the bottom first, and when that's dry, I'll flip it over and paint the top. And I'm using one of my favorites here. This is Rust-Oleum Camouflage Dark Brown Ultra Flat. Great color for old iron. Now with the paint on the bottom dry, I think I can take this off of here, get rid of that, just flip this over and reuse that piece of tape, paint the top side. Now while the paint dries on that frame, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the interior painting on the inside walls of the body. I'm just using, this is some Vallejo chrome green. Probably going to take me 2 coats, and I'm just brush painting it on. Now the kit includes these very nice laser cut basswood walls, exterior walls, for the 4 walls of the caboose and for the cupola. And as nice as they are, I'm not going to use them. I have something different in mind. I am going to make my own walls, exterior walls for the caboose, using the CG Textures printed paper technique. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll show you an example of it right here. Caboose number 92 uses this technique. Yeah, this is not wood. This is a printed CG Textures. You can download these. These are very high-res photos of textures. In this case, wooden slats. And the graphics aren't. This is not a decal. This is actually all created in a graphics program like Adobe Photoshop. That's where all of this was done. And I've created several pieces of rolling stock this way, not just Caboose 92. I also did the Combine 101, which is my version of the Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad Combine from Disneyland. I've done some box cars. I've done several structures on the layout, like the Thunder Mesa water tank that you may have seen. Anyway, it is a highly convincing technique and a great way to do a model that has complex graphics on it. In this case, the Herald, which I wanted to include on this caboose also. And rather than build it out of wood, varnish it to get a smooth surface, then use water slide decals, which I do have for this particular model, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to create some new walls in Adobe Photoshop, and well, let's go have a look at the computer screen, and I'll give you a little example of how all that goes together. The first step was doing a high-res scan of the laser cut walls to use as templates for the printed paper walls I needed to create in Adobe Photoshop.
Then I imported the appropriate photographic wall texture and resized it until the width of the slats matched those on the scanned pieces. After a little copying, pasting, and color correction, I had a good master to make my walls from. I created masks for each piece from the laser cut wall scans and used the selection tools to erase the parts of the wall I wouldn't need. The result was a perfectly sized match for each of the laser cut walls. Since walls on each side were identical, I only needed to create half the walls and then mirror them to get the pieces I would need. The Thunder Mesa herald and car numbering were added on subsequent layers, and then everything was faded and aged using the smudge, blur, and eraser tools.
And here is the final result of all that work on the computer. I've got a couple of printouts, which are done on some very high quality matte photo paper, about 60, 80 pound photo paper. The trick is, of course, it all comes down to the printing, right? You got to have a good printer and print at photo quality, as high quality as you can. This is done with an inkjet printer. I recommend inkjet over a laser copy because a laser copy is going to be shiny, right? And you don't want that. I mean, you might be able to tone it down later with some Tester's dull coat, but you're going to lose some of the believability, I think. So this was all done on my home inkjet printer, which is not an expensive one. It's a Brother inkjet printer, which you can pick up at just about any office supply store. I think we spent about $100 for it. And of course, you got to make sure it's sized correctly. It's got to make sure it's created and then printed out at 100% of the size that you need to build your model. So it's the right scale. So now we're tasked with the job of turning this printed paper into actual parts that can be used on our model. And the best way I've found to do that is to take this and laminate it to something thicker and stronger. We need the parts to be, let's see, yeah, that's what I thought, 1/32 of an inch thick. This is a 1/32 of an inch thick basswood. So I need to coat the back of this with some Super 77 multi-purpose spray adhesive, and then we will adhere it to this chipboard and then cut all the pieces out. So I'll tape this down to a piece of corrugated cardboard, backside up, and then I can get a nice even coat on here. All right. We can carefully pull it off of here with the tape, flip it over, put it on the chipboard. And then I like to use, this is a tool called a brayer, which is used in printing, block printing. Also really handy for things like this. Making sure that is fully adhered and nice and flat. Now for this, you want a hobby knife with a number 11 blade. Make sure it's nice and sharp. I just put a new blade in this knife, so we should be pretty good to go. You know, for something like this, you see this gift, this tiny, skinny little piece right here, and that needs to be cut out. So what you would want to do is cut out this this door shape first. Well, you've got a lot of meat around it on both sides. Because if you cut all this out and then try to go back and cut that door out, that's just asking for trouble. It's really likely that this is going to rip down here. So cut that door out first. And you make multiple light passes to cut something like this out. You don't want to try and, do it with sheer force. Now the next part I want to cut out is this little section here. Now we've got that tiny little thin piece. Now for this top arc on this wall, I think I'm just going to have to freehand that. There we go. There's the first piece. Now I just need to do the rest of them. Well, now that I've got all of these pieces cut out, there's another step I need to do before I can start putting it together, and that's to go back and paint all of the edges. And this is really important because in order for this illusion to work, there can't be any white paper edges showing. So I'm using a color. This is Apple Barrel Barn Red, which is a pretty good match for the printed color on these pieces, and just going around and using a 00 brush and just painting the edges. It's always a good idea to work from the back, like I'm doing here, not from the front. That way, if your brush slips, it goes down in the back part that won't show. And use kind of the edge of the brush rather than the point. Now, with all those edges painted, I can start assembling the exterior walls to the interior walls. And you got to do the ends first. I'm just going to use some yellow glue here. Paint it on the back. Now, before this starts to warp, which it's going to want to do, let's position this on here. It needs to be flush with the bottom of the interior doorway. Little mini clamps are handy. Better to put the glue on here because, should have thought of this the first time, this is less likely to warp since it's reinforced. Oh well, I'll get it right eventually. By the time I'm done, I'll have it all figured out. Now the sidewalls go on and they overlap the ends at the corners. Now I'm assembling the cupola, adding some bracing inside. I'm probably going to add more bracing than the kit comes with to make it a little bit stronger. Just using some O-scale 2x4 right here. I want that down flush with the bottom of those windows so it doesn't show or get in the way of the resin window castings. These little blocks match the arc of the roof. Go right here. Now this has an interior roof which matches the arc of the front and rear walls, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm just holding it in place right now. I'm going to put a couple of drops of CA, actually a little bead of it here. Kick it. Now when that sets up, I'll be able to curve this over and glue the rest of it in place. And then I'll go back and brace it some more underneath. The nice thing about this inner roof insert is it keeps the whole thing square. Alright, I think I got enough reinforcement on there. Now I'll go back with the same green I used on the interior here and paint the inside of this to match. Well, now I can start cleaning up the doors and windows and getting those ready to install, and I might as well start with the cupola windows. You just sand away all of this flash from the back of these resin castings. This process creates a lot of dust, so it's a good idea to have a little compressed air. Blow the parts off as you finish with them. And your sanding surface. Now, the full circle models kit doesn't come with any weight, but I do want to add some to make this track better. So I've got some old weights. These are from some ancient roundhouse HO kits. Some of you out there might recognize these. And put it on my postal scale, and it's a little under an ounce. So I think that'll really help if I glue these to the frame, kind of right in the middle, right over where that four-wheel bogie is. Well, I painted these front and back, and now I'm going to add a little wear and tear and age to them. Dry brush on a lighter shade. This is some apple barrel khaki, which is a good color for this. Well, I've come up with sort of an assembly line system for glazing all these windows. I've already got all the ones for the cupola done. And I just cut a piece of this thin acetate, which is from some packaging, and cut it the same width as the windows, actually a little bit less. And then I can take some CA, put 4 very small dabs. I'm using a pin, a dress pin, to do this around the edges, as far away as you can get from where it's actually going to touch the acetate. And I can just press this down on top and trim it right along the bottom here. Usually I don't like to use CA for window glazing because if it's visible on the glazing at all, it will craze and fog the acetate. But if you take care and put it out as far away from the visible part of the glazing as possible, and don't get too much on, use very, very small amount, you can get away with it. Using some medium CA, just a couple of dabs inside the door frame. I'm going to start with the doors. By the way, I wanted to mention that if anyone's worked with resin parts, resin kits, they know there's a lot of sanding and fitting that goes on. And I did show some of it, but there was more than what I showed in order to get these parts the right size and to get them all to fit before I painted them. So just be aware that, you know, sometimes we gotta keep moving forward and gloss over the the tedious bits. But yeah, there was lots of sanding and filing in order to get these doors and windows to fit properly before they were painted. Well, now I need to drill some holes for the handrails, and fortunately I can use these laser cut pieces as a template, just clamping this over the top here, because the holes are already pre-drilled in these pieces, and that shows me exactly where I need to drill the holes in my walls. And then I can do exactly the same thing for these holes for the nut bolt washer castings that go down along this bottom edge. I've already painted the nut bolt washer castings, so I can go ahead and install them. Be careful not to lose any of these because there's not any extras. I've got exactly 8 in this right size. Now I can put these handrails in. Push them down into the holes. Make sure they don't stick out too far. Well, now I want to add a floor, so you won't be able to see this weight in here when you look in the windows. And this is just some 1/32 of an inch thick scribed plywood that I pulled out of my scrap box. I stained it, and I'm going to glue it in place. Actually, what I think I want to do is get it in here first, and then apply the glue. So that should just drop down in there like that. Now I went ahead and got some paint on the roof panels and the trim pieces for the roof. I'm going to start, I think, by putting on these end trim pieces. Now I need to use the sanding block and bring this top edge down until it matches the arc of this trim piece. And I think I can put the roof on over here. All right. I'm just using these center arches to properly position this. I wanted to show you this sag in the roof here. Isn't that great? What a great detail. And that's one of the things that really attracted me to this kit, because I saw that and thought, that is perfect for Thunder Mesa. Now while that's drying, I can get the roof on the cupola also. This should fit nicely right in there like that. I love it when a plan comes together. These are nice laser cut pieces that match that great built-in sag in the roof. Like so. Now for the roofing, I'm going to use some black construction paper, and I've cut it into some 3-foot by 8-foot pieces. That roof looks good, but it looks a little too new, so I'm going to dry brush on some grays here. Going to fade it back a little bit. Now I can add the smoke jack, which I've already painted flat black. A couple of drops of this. Just finishing up the frame now. Got the couplers installed. These are these nice, I forget the number. They're not number 5s, but they're the same size. And they're the whisker couplers. These are some really nice, very reliable, bomb-proof couplers. Really like those. And now I'm just going to, and I trimmed off the magnetic trip pin from the couplers because I don't use those, and it's the 1890s, so wouldn't really have anything like that hanging down off the couplers. In fact, they'd actually be link and pin, but we're not going to go that far. Now I'm just dry brushing on some weathering. Bring out the detail in this nice 3D printed frame down here. A couple final details. These are some Grant Line marker lamps that I've painted up. They're non-operational, but I still think they're going to make a nice detail. I've already drilled some holes to receive that wire, so I'm going to go ahead and glue them on. I can just drop this down on the frame. Let's see how we did. I'm going to leave the body removable for now in case I want to go back and add more details later. Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's see how it looks over on the rails. Now let's do a size comparison. That's a Bachmann On30 caboose. You can see it's quite a bit bigger. Yeah, I really like the small size of these little bobber cabooses. Really adds to the character of a train. Hey, thank you so much for watching that entire build video. I hope you got a lot out of it. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you'd like to see more. Until next time, keep moving forward, amigos. Adios for now.